Time now 6:38. A government-regulated service that was meant to allow people to block cold callers is being ignored by some telemarketing companies.
Yes, the BBC's Panorama programme found that despite thousands of complaints being lodged each month with the Information Commissioner's Office, which has the power to enforce the rules, no fines have been imposed for at least 18 months.
Tony Clark has both an ex-directory phone number and he's signed up to the telephone preference service, a scheme that's supposed to prevent UK-based companies from making unwanted cold calls. Yet he's still getting up to 5 of them a day. He found one firm was especially persistent.
I'd like to know how they know about me, how they got my details.
Panorama went undercover to find out.
My name's I'm calling from the Industrial Hearing Clinic.
In fact, the company calling Tony and others like him is called Central Claims Group, based just outside Manchester.
Okay. Back up with CCG.
There's my cold caller. We tell them like the company name and that sort of thing. Lots of complaints.
In a statement, Central Claims Group said it takes its legal and regulatory obligations very seriously and does not condone the lapses we filmed. They said they have informed all employees that introducing themselves as anything other than Central Claims Group will, if proved, be regarded as gross misconduct, warranting summary dismissal. But what of the scheme that's supposed to block cold callers? The Direct Marketing Association runs the scheme, but enforcement is the job of the Information Commissioner's Office, and they haven't imposed any fines in the last 18 months.
At the moment, we definitely are trying to take action against these individuals. We've only had the power to issue a fine since the end of January, so it's early days yet. The other thing I have to say is there is a lot of money to be made in this particular sphere.
So for now, companies across the country are getting away with breaking the rules. Declan Lawn, BBC News.
And you can see the full report on Panorama tonight, 8:30 on BBC One. But we're going to discuss this further now with Chris Combemale, who is from the Direct Marketing Association, which runs the cold call opt-out service mentioned in that report. And it doesn't appear to be working. Chris?
Well, it does work to the extent that 17.5 million people are registered on it, and 70 to 80% of the calls you would have received are blocked.
70 to 80%?
70
so
to 80%.
In some cases, a third are getting through?
There are certainly companies that are not adhering to the regulation, and we'd like to see the Information Commissioner's Office take stronger action with the powers that they've had since January, which raised their fining powers to £500,000. Certainly, telemarketing, when it's done well, is a valuable service to customers, and the good communication needs to be protected by going after companies that are not following the rules. As an example, I received a call myself just the other week from my local car dealer reminding me that my MOT and annual service was due. That in itself was extremely valuable and helpful because I would have forgotten.
Do you count that in the same category as a cold call? Somebody with whom you have a relationship who reminds you that you know, your business relationship that is going to benefit you needs to be reviewed?
The majority of calls are actually from companies with which people have a relationship. So that certainly is considered within the category of telemarketing. Some people don't want to receive those calls because sometimes it is inconvenient, and then they can register on the telephone preference service. But you're right, there is a difference between pure prospecting and existing customers, and also debt collection. A lot of the calls people receive are actually debt collection calls.
You said a moment ago that you know there are companies that are ignoring this. Do you, when you say you know who, do you know who they are?
We don't know who they are as the Direct Marketing.
How come you don't know?
Well, we know all the companies who are in membership of the Direct Marketing Association, which is close to 1,000 companies in the UK.
So
and we know
you're saying that no one who's a member of the Direct Marketing Association is breaking these rules?
As far as we know, no one is. We have a robust best practice guidelines, which is a higher standard actually than the legislation. We have compliance visits that we conduct to our members, and to our knowledge, none of our members are currently in breach of the rules.
So the answer then, if what you're saying is true, is that if everyone belonged to your organisation, then there wouldn't be a problem at all?
Well, we'd like to think so, absolutely.
Well, that sounds absurd.
Probably optimistic, yes. It's certainly true that things can happen, but we would certainly like more companies to be members of the Direct Marketing Association. We'd like more companies to follow the rules, and we'd like consumers to be protected.
Does cold calling actually work? I mean, ask anyone if they want to get cold called, and everyone will say no. I mean, who wants to get cold called? And out of, you know, you make 100 calls, how many of those actually result in anyone actually buying anything?
Actually, we had a very good example when preparing for this round of discussions. One of the BBC researchers told us they'd been called by a mobile phone company that they have a contract with, offered a better package, better service, and took it up, and actually said...
My question was, out of 100 calls, you must know this, because presumably you promote the whole idea of cold calling, you know, your members do. How many out of 100 actually get a positive result?
I can't tell you the exact percentage, but I know that in a recent survey that a mobile phone company took to their customers who'd bought from a cold call, 86% said they were satisfied with the experience. So people do find it valuable. You can speak to an advisor about a product and service. Could you do it the other way around?
Could you do it the other way where you have to sign in? Why doesn't your industry, why don't you have an industry rule which says unless you actually sign into the scheme, you don't get? It's assumed that you don't want cold calls. Why don't you do it that way around?
Well, because a lot of people do enjoy receiving it. 17.5 million people have taken advantage of...
So they could sign in then?
They can certainly sign in. When you order, for instance, from companies online, you often give them your phone number and give them the opportunity to speak to you.
That's not cold calling, though, is it?
I think all of telemarketing people generally call cold calling, so I know you're making the distinction between pure prospecting, but companies do need to have the opportunity to let people know about products and services. People who are often at home for the majority of the day, mothers who are with their children, don't have the opportunity to go out and do research and compare products.
Can I just check one last thing? If, for example, if one of our viewers today had a cold call from a company that was part of your organisation, Direct Marketing Association, would you expel them?
We would, following an investigation. So the process there would be to make a complaint to the Direct Marketing Commission, which
Has anyone been expelled from the Direct Marketing Association?
Yeah, we expelled 3 or 4 members last year. They weren't specifically related to cold calling. And while
no
it
one has
doesn't
been expelled for cold calling?
I'd have to check back in history, but certainly last year we expelled 3 or 4 members. And it doesn't sound like a great sanction to be expelled by the Direct Marketing Association, but we know that at least one of them lost a couple of £1 million of business because there are companies who will only do business with members of the Direct Marketing Association.
We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. And do let us know your thoughts this morning if you've been cold called.
We're going to be speaking to someone from the Information Commissioner's office after 8 o'clock on that. Now,
Let's see, time 6:46. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. I'm